Hello, and welcome to the New Rules of Sex Summit, your sexual re-education. My name is Dr. Lauren Brem, and I am here today with Dr. Ava Cadell, America's #1 sexpert, love coach, and relationship expert. Welcome, Dr. Ava.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Now, you teach students all the time because you have a Loveology University, correct?
I do. I love mentoring students like yourself.
Yes, I met you at
school. Going to make a fabulous difference in the world of human sexuality. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I heard you give a talk on sex toys, which is why I reached out to you today, because in our sexuality summit, we haven't talked about toys at all. And of course, they play a huge role in people's sex lives, their advantages, disadvantages. And I think one of the things that helps to kind of take some of the shame out of it is to understand the history of sex toys and how they've always been a part of our lives. And so I wondered if you could start with that so we could all just have like a better understanding.
Absolutely. So yes, so sex toys have been around since the beginning of time. Well, at least since the 10th century.
Okay.
In ancient Greece and Rome, they carved dildos out of everything that you could possibly think of, including wood, glass, and leather, and silver, and even animal horns. And then in China, during the Ming Dynasty, which is like 1368 to about 1644, I think, penis rings were made out of jade and ivory. They're known as cock rings now.
Yes.
And in Japan, the very first Benoit balls were made from really heavy material like lead and mercury. But then in more recent history, still a long time ago, Alfred Kinsey, who you know is the founder of the Institute for Sex Research, he reported that about 20% of women were already using some kind of object to satisfy themselves by inserting it. And they varied from cucumbers and bananas and candles. So you get the picture.
Yeah, I remember a story as well of a woman just rubbing up against a key, you know, rubbing or grinding against a key or a lock or a pillow, or like there's so many objects that we use to stimulate ourselves externally and internally.
Yes, exactly. And so with that said, anything that you use at home to enhance your sex life could be defined as a sex toy. So whether it's an ice cube, you know, to stimulate even your lover's thigh, or a spatula for some spanking, it's all a prelude to the serious sex toys that we're going to talk about today. And it's all healthy and normal and fun and playful because so many people take sex too seriously. And as sexologists, we want to take the pressure off sex, right? And sex toys is a great way to de-stress. So the great explosion, you know, of the sex industry really came, I would say, in the 1960s. But the problem with sex toys was that they were very hard, not in a good way, but they were made out of really hard, inflexible plastics, and some were even still made out of metal. But today, you can get sex toys made out of realistic jelly and rubber and silicone and all kinds of, you know, hyperallergenic materials that are suitable for people who are sensitive to chemical, you know, substances. By the way, do you remember in my presentation how much the most expensive sex toy in the world was?
I forget, but it's the one with gold, like covered in
diamonds,
something, right?
$1 million, yeah. And it's embellished with 1,000 white and pink sapphires, pearls, and diamonds. So,
wow.
I think they should send us one.
I think they should be promoting it. Yeah, well, we must be living at just this explosion of sex toys coming to the market, because I imagine even though sex toys have been around, there's been a suppression of it just because it's taboo to talk about it or to use them. I mean, I'm always surprised that just in the 70s or early 80s, in the 70s was the first time that you could advertise female menstrual products online, that in the 80s was the first time you heard the word period. Like there's just been this lifting of all of these kind of forces so that we can't market and talk about and advertise. And now, you can find like anything you want made out of all these realistic materials. And I mean, what a time that we live in.
I know, not to mention the sex robots that are coming soon.
And the sex robots that are here. That I was telling another person in an interview that there's a brothel in Paris that's just sex robots now, or sex dolls. And these sex dolls, they tried to shut it down, and the French government was like, no, there's nothing wrong with this. If you want to go pay and have sex with a sex doll, that's your right to have that experience. It's not hurting anyone.
I agree.
Yeah. So what are some of the sexual issues or incompatibilities that sex toys can help either individuals or couples with?
Well, there are so many. So first, sex toys can help women to experience their very first orgasm. Mm-hmm. I know I've had clients where I have sent them home with a clitoral stimulator, and they have called me screaming with pleasure because they had their very first intense climax. Mm. And, there are some really unique ones, such as the womanizer. Mm-hmm. I love the womanizer because they have one, it's called the number 2 Go, and it comes in a luxury lipstick case, so you can travel with it. And I also like the We Vibe Tango, which is very small. But if you want something that has more vibration, than the original magic wand, and none of these are phallic, so they're not intimidating. So that's number 1. Mm-hmm. But also vibrators, they can be helpful for even vulva pain conditions, such as vulvodynia, where penetration can actually be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So vibrators can be used in conjunction with medical dilators. Mm-hmm. And for vaginismus, which is a condition, as you know, where women have pain during intercourse, there's the Lilo Lee vibrator dilator. And then California Exotics, they created a whole line of sex toys with Dr. Laura Berman, who's a very famous sex therapist. Mm-hmm. And I think it's called what's her line called? I think it's called Intimate Basics. Okay. It's vaginal stimulators. And beautiful packaging, again, very sophisticated for women. Mm-hmm. And they can really help to rejuvenate the vagina after menopause or even childbirth by improving the tone and the elasticity of the vaginal walls, and then also promoting lubrication.
Right, yeah, because that vibration increases the circulation to the area and gets everything moving. And the pain reduction or the ability to relax, I think, is really interesting, like you were talking about with vaginismus, where sometimes penetration can't even take place. I mean, you can sometimes get clients who are married and still virgins, technically, because they haven't been able to experience penetration. And I think it's interesting how when you stimulate the clitoris, the vagina or the anus or, the jaw, like the whole body relaxes and then is more able to receive penetration. And of course, I always think about being in labor with my daughter because I used a vibrator on the outside of my clothes between my legs over my vulva to help balance out the pain of my contractions. And I got this idea from Dr. Barry Komisaruk and his research in Rutgers in New Jersey at counteracting pain with this kind of stimulation. And when you're not feeling good, it's hard to find the energy to masturbate yourself. And it's I call it I use my sex toys for my lazy days, where I'm too lazy to put in the work. And I'm I'm going to use this toy instead.
That's great information for women to know. I love the part about even being able to use a vibrator over your clothes. You're absolutely right. Yes. And speaking of lubrication, yes, they do help to lubricate a woman, but the older she gets, the less she's able to lubricate. So I always say that we should have extra lube, before we need it. And there are companies, so many lube companies, but Wet has been around a long time, and they have a huge selection of lubes, from water-based, silicone, to hemp-based, to organic. And so I think WEDA is better for comfort, for safety, and for arousal.
Mm-hmm.
For women,
Yeah,
it's really
I was at a sex shop recently, and he was saying that one of their best sellers was the cannabis lubricator that people were using and enjoying the effects of that. And we interviewed another woman on this summit about cannabis and sex, and I thought how interesting, because it adds to increasing that vasodilation and circulation and things. So for couples, what are some of the issues that you see couples have that sex toys might help them with?
Well, you know, couples have really the same issues as single people. I mean, especially if somebody is going through some necessary sexual healing, for example. A lot of people don't realize that sex toys can be valuable for healing from past sexual abuse. So I've had a lot of women who are married, but their husbands aren't able to be their therapist and heal them. They can't enjoy sex because of past, rapes or past abuse of some kind. Mm-hmm. And so again, some of the non-penetrative clitoral stimulators work wonders. And Benoit balls too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one woman who I have who's a client, she actually now walks around with her Benoit balls inserted, and she says that it helps her to develop a sense of owning her body, that was taken away from her a long time ago. And she really likes it when her husband gives her oral sex, and she has the Benoit balls, and she has the most full body orgasms that way. So I think with all the Me Too movement that's out there, it's important to let people know that actually sex toys can be a wonderful form of healing, because they haven't been promoted that way.
Mm. Yeah, and with the Benoit balls, and there's been such a resurgence of the use of jade eggs and different types of eggs and different types of stones for different conditions that you can use, the vaginal weightlifting, and then there are dildos made in quartz crystal and all of these different things for healing. But can you talk about what, if a woman does have some sexual trauma and she knows it, and she, wants to work on that, and she's got her sex toy, and maybe she's carved out some time to be with herself, what would you suggest that she do to sort of face that fear or that numbness or contraction protecting that's in her body?
Well, yeah, there are so many stepping stones before you get to the sex toys that a woman needs to make a commitment to do. And the first one, of course, is forgiveness, because without forgiveness, there can be no love, including self-love. So she needs to forgive herself for allowing whatever trauma she experienced. And she does need to forgive the perpetrator so that the pain doesn't stay locked in her body. And then she can start experiencing the self-love and defining what makes her lovable, literally telling herself, I am lovable because I'm a good person, I'm an honest person, I'm a funny person, I'm a generous person, whatever it is. And then she can start rewarding herself for all of her accomplishments, big and small. So making a list of those accomplishments, whether she's a mom or whether she has a degree in something, or even just, I say, waking up in the morning is an accomplishment in many ways, is it not? Yeah. And so with the rewards, she can start giving herself small rewards like chocolate or ice cream or a bubble bath or a massage or a pedicure, and then sex toys, working in the sex toys so that she can reward herself with self-love, pleasure, stimulation, whether it's the nipples or, it doesn't even have to be a sexual major erogenous zone. It can be just her tummy, just her beautiful tummy. And really, I encourage women to look at themselves in the mirror while they're doing this, so that as they see their body, they complement different parts of their body because we know as women, there's so much negative self-talk that we have, and we're much more quick to say, I don't like this part of my body, rather than I love this part of my body.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have a negative thought about a part that they don't like, I tell them they have to replace it with a positive thought. So even if you don't like your thighs, you can say, but I'm so grateful that my thighs take me on long walks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a healing process that I work with women. And I just finished my newest book on sexual healing to help women overcome, all the sexual harassment and abuse that they've experienced with loving solutions like these.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can so relate to that, and that forgiveness step. Like when you realize that person's they're not gonna come back and fix it or make it better. Like you have to work through the anger, the sadness, and ultimately like letting that go, and then that reclamation of yourself. And like when you talked about the client with the Benoit balls, and like, this is mine, like this pleasure is mine, sex is mine, this body is mine. I went through that experience and I didn't like that or how that turned out. But this is who I am in the world now. And this, this sex and pleasure is mine. And I think the act of self-pleasuring and all of that bonding that happens with yourself is such a powerful experience, to go into the trance state of sexuality with yourself. And in so many cultures, they use trance states to heal, and sexuality and arousal is a powerful trance state that we can enter.
Definitely. And you'll have a better love life with your partner. And before you were asking about sex toys for couples in long-term relationships, I think it's so important for couples, who've been together for a long time, to try new things.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, the novelty.
Yeah. And whether it's BDSM with a bondage kit, or tantric sex, or anal sex, or whatever it is, just bringing something new. I call it like a third party. It doesn't have to be a third person, but it can be a third toy. I mean, it can be a third person if you both want to do it. And yeah, I think going to a sex toy store together, like Hustler, is a really great store nationwide where everybody is trained and they can tell you about the sex toys, and before you walk out, they put batteries in to make sure that they work.
Nice.
But you can also go online, of course, and buy sex toys. There's a myriad of websites, and of course, we all have our own websites. Like I have one at sexpert.com where people can buy them too. And then just having sex in different positions, different places, at different times. So you want to avoid predictability, I think, don't you?
Yeah.
In a relationship, because, that is one of the reasons sometimes people stray when they feel neglected. It's not the only reason, but I think that there's so much that people can do, and take turns initiating fun nights, date nights, fantasy nights. But one of the most powerful tricks that I've been able to give women is to use a blindfold on their partner, because it helps women to lose all their inhibitions, and they feel like they're 10 times bolder, with or without sex toys. So that is a great tip that can be very, very helpful. And then just, buy sex toys for the G-spot, the A-spot, the U-spot, the prostate spot. We have all these awesome spots. So explore.
Yeah.
Go exploring, and you never know what you'll find.
Yeah, there's definitely, in general, people are much more open to exploring, and you hear more people talking about trying anal plugs or beads for either partner, and incorporating sex toys to often help women who tend to struggle to have orgasms with a partner. And that women can be connected and can be penetrated and use a vibrator at the same time. That seems to be a great solution for a lot of women. What would you recommend for partners where maybe the woman isn't feeling as filled up by her partner's genitals as she would like. What would you recommend? How could sex toys help with that?
Well, I would recommend the We Vibe, which is one of those sex toys that you can actually wear during lovemaking. You know, it's this shape. So it stimulates the clitoris, and then this part goes in and stimulates the G-spot, and then the man's penis fits in with it. So actually the man has to be somewhat compact, because some women have told me that it fills them up too much. So I would recommend that. But then also you can buy dildos, and you know, the woman can give her partner oral sex while he's using the dildo, which is, you know, more endowed than he is. So there's so many fantastic options out there for women to find real satisfaction sexually. But as women, we have to be prepared to ask for what we want without fear, you know, of judgment or even ridicule. We have to say, you know, this is what I want. Let's do that. Have this sexy adventure together.
Absolutely. And being open to hearing what our partners truly want too, even if it scare us for the first second, or sometimes we feel like, well, aren't I enough? Or, you know, whatever, has the sex not been good enough for however long? But I think once you get past the initial reaction and start to explore what it is they're bringing to the table, their arousal and excitement about it translates to, you know, it passes on to you, and then you're both excited about your partner's pleasure. You know, we focus so often on, well, how am I getting pleasure from sex? But having a partner experiencing pleasure is your pleasure when you're in that arousal state as well. I've found that I've even had orgasms in my body while a partner's having an orgasm. It just sort of travels through my arm or whatnot into my body, and it never ceases to amaze me what is possible.
Every man's dream lover.
But you know, that has taken a dedication to the practice of sex, you know, and really and I always tell everyone, investing time in your own pleasure and investing time exploring and, you know, communicating and making mistakes and trying things and toys and learning from partners, you know, it's such a education. And then the brain just is wired for pleasure. I mean, our capacity for pleasure in the brain is so much more, you know, they always say we're not using the full capacity of our brain. There are these regions that are just for pleasure, and there's so many of them I think we're not accessing, and so there's more to discover there. So do you is there ever a time when sex toys are not a good idea that you could share?
Well, definitely they're not a good idea if your partner doesn't want, if your partner doesn't want to use them and has some issues with them, you know, and says, well, I tried sex toys and I hated them, then you don't want to pressure someone to use a sex toy. And also, if you think that sex toys are going to fix all your sex problems, they're not. Now, I do use an analogy for sex toys, and that is dessert. You know, dessert on a menu. I say that because a lot of couples will say, well, we don't need sex toys, Dr. Ava. Why are you talking to us about sex toys? And I'll say, no, I know you don't need them, but you don't need dessert either. However, when you have dessert, it's really yummy. And sex toys can be really yummy. Not all the time, but sometimes they're an enhancement. So you do have to be mindful when you're talking about sex toys. And I've also had a lot of men who are completely turned off because they feel like they're going to be replaced by sex toys. And so I say to them, no, don't worry. You know, sex toys can't cuddle, they can't kiss, they can't give compliments. So no, you won't be replaced by sex toys. But they can help you to be a better lover because you can utilize them to find all these erogenous zones that maybe you haven't found before, and then you can take credit for the pleasure and multiple orgasms that your partner is having.
Right.
But yeah, there's always a time when they're not appropriate. So talking about a sex toy before using one is paramount.
Yeah, absolutely. You need consent for that. And
You do.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend who recently bought one, and her husband, she was hiding it from her husband because she didn't want him to know, because she doesn't want him to know that she's masturbating, because he is going to say, well, why aren't you having sex with me? And, I think he feels like he's not getting enough sex. And so if she's masturbating, then he's missing out on the sex. And I think that rather than, avoiding this conversation, like they need to get some support with that, because, they could be masturbating together. They could recognize that it's healthy to have your own sexual lives and then come together sexually. And if the partner's feeling threatened by your masturbating with sex toys, that maybe they need more time for sex or intimacy carved out with them during the week, so that they're not threatened by the toy, and they know that you're going to have a happier wife and mother to your children and all of that, who's going to emerge from the bedroom or bathroom, after she's had time to really nurture herself.
Yeah, and I know you agree with me that sex toys basically have therapeutic value, because they can add, variety to a relationship and take the pressure off performance, especially for a man. Add that element of fantasy and fun. And I'm glad they're becoming more and more mainstream, and all the magazine articles and newspapers are talking about sex toys. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think when you talk about, the therapeutic value, that's where the vibrator began in the United States, was for the hysteria. And, the women during the Victorian era, where the societal belief was that women didn't have sexual desire at all. A healthy woman had no libido. She would just give sex to her husband so she could birth children. And women had all of these symptoms from, emotions that were all over the place. And this doctor found that by giving them clitoral orgasms, that it would get rid of all of their symptoms and heal them. And he got so tired with all that stimulation that the vibrator was created. I love that movie with Maggie Gyllenhaal. It's called Hysteria, right?
It's called Hysteria. I love it too. But it's sad that, the women had to go in because they thought they were broken. But speaking of broken, yes, sex toys can help. I mean, it can help men with erectile dysfunction, and it can help them following prostate surgery or treatment by, promoting blood flow into the erectile tissues and stimulating the nerves to help the man with his erection. And there's a sex toy program. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Private Gym. And it's a pelvic muscle exerciser. And it comes with a video and a book. And I've endorsed it in the past because there's not too many sex toys like that for men. But I was giving a seminar about sex toys, and I had some men in the audience, and one of them was in a wheelchair. And I said, okay, guys, what if you could invent a sex toy, what would it be like? And the guy in the wheelchair said, it would be hands-free. And I said, yes, exactly. And since then, I'm so happy that there are some amazing hands-free sex toys for men. There's the Auto Blow. Are you familiar with that? It's like a flashlight. It's called Flashlight and Auto Blow. They're very similar. And then the Tenga eggs, and then Hot Octopus came out with a fabulous hands-free masturbator that I've shown at different presentations. And then for women who have disabilities and who have limitations of mobility, there are sex toys with long handles. Really important. Or even women who, are larger women. A regular sex toy might not reach their clitoris. So again, I really embrace sex toys that have those handles. There's one by Evolved, I think, and it's called Love Handle. And then remote control panties are fantastic for women, right? If you have any limitations. Screaming O has a really cool one, and Screaming O has lots of vibrating cock rings.
Mm.
They're awesome because they can help couples actually reach orgasms at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a great empowering sex toy right there.
Yeah. Yeah. You're reminding me of a couple things. One was a toy that someone had that I could control from, like, at a party. I could have it in my pocket and like turn it on, or increase the strength, and it stayed inside of the woman's vagina. And I thought that was a super cool, like, hands-free toy. And I also, have taken for granted. I always said I studied to be a midwife for a year, and I always thought, oh, I'm meant to be a midwife because I have these long hands that can, reach in and grab the baby out. But I've taken these hands for granted because they, I can reach very deep into different areas of the vagina, the A spot and the cervix.
That's nice. Yes.
I was able to feel my cervix even in pregnancy, but I've talked to other women that they're like, no, my hands, I can't reach, my arms aren't long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what you're talking about. But there are areas that, I love the Gigi by Lalo that reaches the front and has the nice flat surface, and you can reach all these great spots deep in the vagina that you wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. And and that's often your partner won't reach just because of the angle of penetration. And this is so powerful for the healing that can come from it. You have emotion that starts, you start bawling, or you get anger and your body gets hot, or you're like, what is that? And it's just a memory and emotion that's stored in the tissue. And in Chinese medicine, they say that all floats down into the basin, the pelvis, and hangs out there. And so it's through sexuality that we're actually able to clear out a lot of that emotion that kind of hangs out down in the pelvis. So
absolutely. Speaking of retrieval, I just wanted to emphasize when I was talking about Benoit balls, it's really important to have the ones that have a loop attached to them.
Yeah.
And they have 1 or 2 balls that you can put up there, and they're all different sizes. Because I did have somebody in one of my seminars a long time ago who won some Benoit balls that were donated from one of the manufacturers that didn't have a string or a loop. And she got them stuck inside of her, and I was so worried for her, and I had to talk her through using her muscles, to get them out. So ever since then, I always emphasize, get the retrieval loop.
Yeah. Some women, I mean, their hands don't reach far enough, or they panic and contract, or and so it is. If you've never used them before, if you don't have the confidence that you can get it out, then definitely get something with a little loop to it. Or something.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Well, anything else that you want to say about sex toys? I think we've covered individuals, couples, healing, novelty. Is there anything else on the market you love right now?
Well, there just is. For people who are single, who are too shy to meet people, and who, have some inhibitions, there is a company called Eye of Love, and they're famous for selling high-quality pheromones. And I have just started working with them to create a jewelry line infused with pheromones. I just happen to be wearing a bracelet that they sell very reasonably, and they have necklaces for men and women, and it's infused with pheromones. So it's lava rock, which is very porous and ancient, and it literally makes you feel confident when you go out. You spray it, whether you want to attract a man or a woman, and then it just gives you that bold feeling of going out and giving somebody a compliment. So I always say, wear your pheromone-infused jewelry and go out and give somebody an open-ended compliment, so that they can come back and say, they can respond with not just saying thank you. Say, oh, I really like what you're wearing, where did you get it, or something like that, or that's a great haircut, who's your hairdresser? Just something to start a conversation. So anything that can enhance meeting somebody, or, making your love life better is fantastic, because in the end, nothing is going to matter as much as the beautiful memories that we've created giving and receiving love. I think sex toys is a big part of that.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, if we don't have the confidence, then we're not going to be able to say to our partner, I'd like you to, can we explore some clips for the nipples, or can we, can you tie me up and I want to explore? Like, it takes a real confidence, and most people have so much fear about sex and rejection and all of that. So I think, conversations like this help to normalize, and they hear us talking about it and then they can go talk about it. But I love that, the piece of the pheromones too. And they say that we've really messed with that because of the hormonal birth control and the perfumes, and like we need to get back to that sort of pheromone.
The sense of smell. Our sense of smell is our most primitive of all the senses.
Yes.
The reason we choose whomever we're with is because we are so aroused by their scent.
Yeah.
And chemistry is all about the smell that your partner has. So I do think it's very important. And I just wanted to go back, as you were saying, how important it is for us to say and ask for what we want. I think that it's really important not only to ask, but actually to state our desires. We shouldn't have to ask permission from our partner to explore our G-spot. We should say, I have been fantasizing about you finding my G-spot and finding out if I'm a female ejaculator, and I think it would be so exciting. Let's go and get a G-spot vibrator right now. Just stating your desire. You're not asking permission. I think there's a difference. And again, we're not trained on intimate communication. So people like you and I that can help so many people have, just better sex lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can extend to any desire you have, and stating what it is you'd like to explore, and then negotiating with your partner how you're going to accomplish that, how you're going to meet those needs. So I love that. Well, and when you were talking about smell too, I just had to mention this recent study that came out that people with a very good sense of smell are very orgasmic and good at sex. So they were recently able to prove that. And I've always had this very sensitive nose. It sounds like you do too when you were talking about it. So everyone will know that we practice what we preach. So Ava, do you want to let everyone know where they can find your work and your online courses and all your...
Yeah, the best place is avacadell.com, AVACADELL. And that will take you to my Loveology University. That will take you to my blog on sexpert.com. It'll show you all my books, and it'll take you everywhere. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ava. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we will see you in the next interview. Bye-bye.
Bye.